I'm very interested in. uh, Oh, excuse me. Got a little smuts. So I'm just fine. I'm very interested in the whole idea of identity in general. Um, Race is something that I should say I've thought about my entire life. I finally did my 23andMe, and it was interesting. But gender is obviously sex and gender are issues which have been very prominent lately. So, and especially just really just as a human being, but also as a psychotherapist, it's an issue that I have thought about a lot. I haven't really had that many clients who consider themselves to be gender fluid or trans. I've seen maybe three or four. I had more clients who were just gay actually, but trans or non-binary. And I really I do feel like being a psychotherapist, you're kind of a philosopher in a way because you're I would say you're an applied philosopher, right? Because you're really trying to figure out uh, what's going on for a person. You're thinking about their mind, the biological basis of their behavior, but also social influences, cultural influences, and it really gets at the question of what are human beings and what's our nature really. Can you can I as a man identify as a woman without ever having a woman's body? You know, is it simply and it's some kind of internal reality? And then everybody needs to organize around my reality of myself. That's fascinating to me. I don't, but if you ask these kinds of questions or you think about it in any way, you're considered transphobic. But how could you not be fascinated? How could anybody not be fascinated by uh, identity, gender, race, all these questions? Anyway, so recently I found out about this massive study, and I don't know how to share it. Actually, oh wait a minute, I could share it actually, right? Oh, I could share it. I can share it. I'm going to share it. So I don't know if anybody can see this. Largest study to date confirms an overlap between autism and gender diversity. I don't know if anybody can see this. People who do not identify with the sex that they were assigned at birth are 3 to 6 times. I just recently started hearing 6 times as likely to be autistic. Now that's I'm not a statistician, but that's a lot. 6 times more likely to be autistic, according to the largest study yet to examine the connection. Gender diverse people are also more likely to report autism traits and to suspect they have undiagnosed autism. So they're 6 times more likely people who identify, with gender, fluidity or non-binary or trans are 6 times more likely to be autistic or have autistic traits. Cisgender or cis refers to people whose gender identity and assigned sex match. The results come from an analysis of 5 unrelated databases that all include information about autism, mental health, and gender. All these findings across different data sets tend to tell a similar story, says study investigator Varun Warrior, research associate at the University of Cambridge. Okay, so this was done at Cambridge in the UK. Autistic people are more likely than neurotypical people to be gender diverse. Several studies show, and gender diverse people are more likely to have autism than are cisgender people. But most previous studies have probed the relationship among people who sought gender related medical care, often for gender dysphoria, a condition in which the quote mismatch between gender identity and sex assigned at birth um, causes significant distress. That cohort doesn't represent the full scope of gender diverse people, says Aaron Jansen, associate professor of psychiatry and behavioral science at Northwestern University in Chicago, Illinois, was not involved in the work. It's so vital to understand this question outside of clinical context. Jansen says a more naturalistic study with this many participants outside of a clinical context really does provide a lot of support for the overlap. Gender and autism. The five data sets together include 641,860 people, mostly adults. 30,892 have autism. 3,777 identifies gender diverse. The majority of the data from about 514,000 people came from an online survey conducted as part of a 2017 British television documentary about autism. Simon Baron Cohen, professor of developmental psychopathology at the University of Cambridge and the new study's lead investigator, led the collection of those data. Yeah, check this out for yourself. I'm going to stop reading there, but three of the other data sets also use online questionnaires. The fifth came from a population study that uh, collected information through primary care providers and included an optional online survey about autism traits. All of the studies included a question about autism diagnosis and asked for supplementary information such as a participant's age or diagnosis. At diagnosis, one asked for a copy of medical records to confirm the diagnosis, and it goes on and on and on. Oh, that's interesting. And he looks at gender identity and autism traits, clinical impressions. Interesting. Yeah, because I'm gonna be honest with you, it never really made any sense. None of this makes any sense to me. Like, how can you be how can you identify as something that you've never been? Like I've never been a female. I cannot menstruate. I don't have breasts. I don't have a vagina. These are like, how can you dissociate from your actual body? Because that's what it kind of is, right? You're identifying as something not you know that it's all in your head. How does that occur? And this at least is food for thought. And don't call people transphobic unless they really are. I mean, but if somebody wants to just understand what's going on, because it is a very serious issue, particularly when you're talking about children getting these puberty blockers and all this other stuff, and women having to share spaces. Notice it's always about women, trans women, and women. And I think also, in addition to the autism, there's also the issue of simply being gay. A lot of people who are trans are really gay. And then there's also gender dysphoria. There's also what's the other one? Oh, trauma. Okay, but and I would like to look into those factors too. But it looks like there's, I'm not a, uh, I mean, it sounds like to me, as somebody who's not a statistician, that six times more likely that's something significant. It would seem significant to me. anyway. But again, don't listen to me. Check it out for yourself.